Hello, hello. So in this video, we're going to talk about what it means to be leading above the line or below the line. So this is taken from our friends from the Conscious Leadership Framework, and they've also designed or come up with by help and support of other systems and other modalities, including the integral framework designed by Ken Wilber, which we work with a lot as well. They've come up with a framework and the 15 commitments for conscious leadership. And as a part of the 15 commitments, we can measure ourselves with the 50 commitments as to we are functioning or operating and being and behaving above the line or below the line. And in this video, I'm going to explain what it means and how we can recognize whether we are operating above or below the line. And it's really binary. And that makes it really simple, really, really simple, yet really, really powerful. Because we are either above or below the line, and there's not much in between in that sense, which makes it simple to apply, sometimes difficult to shift, but that's the opportunity, and that's what I want to speak into today. What is the opportunity, and how can we move from below the line once we've recognized it to above the line? So first, let's start with the very beginning. You see here on the left-hand side, you see below the line. What does below the line mean? Below the line, operating or functioning in the world or behaving, being, doing in the world is actually a normal state for most individuals. And below the line living is a closed defensive state. You might think, oh, is that normal for most individuals? Well, unfortunately, yes. Most of us live in our what we call our ego constructs or our perceptions of reality, which means we're either filtering the present moment with memories from the past or ideas and perceptions of the future, which means we're essentially closed. We're not actually open to what's present in the moment. And in that way, we are defending, in a certain sense, our beliefs, our preconceived ideas about what we think reality is and should look like, and therefore also relationships, work and business, and other health, well-being, other things in life. We have our preconceived ideas about what that is and therefore what that should look like. So this is actually a normal state for most individuals, is to be below the line and to be leading their life below the line. The primary focus here in this below the line state of consciousness, is what we would say, is of being right. So in other words, we're constantly scanning, and this is what our brain does automatically. Yeah. So there's nothing wrong with this as such. Actually, what we want in conscious leadership is not so much that this is not happening, but that we are aware that this is happening. Most of us, including myself and Dan and others in the team, are below the line a lot of the time in life. The real question is not, I can't be below the line. That's not the aim. The aim is, am I aware that I am below the line? Because that allows me the opportunity to shift. And the primary focus is in being right, because I'm constantly then, or our minds are constantly looking in reality to confirm my biases. So instead of being curious and exploring new ideas that might be very different to what I think is true or right, I'm looking at how are my ideas and perceptions being confirmed by reality. This is simply how the mind operates. It's a primary way of operating of the mind. It's also, if we look at simply our biological functioning and actually our functioning as animals, we are wired to look for threats. That our nervous system, our biology is wired to look for threats so that we can survive. And the way we look for threats in our modern day society is not anymore through a tiger actually chasing us. That's not the threats we are facing. The threats we are facing are in the workplace. Are we being social? Are we performing? Are we able, and therefore do we get money to live and survive and to buy a house and to have food on the table and so on and so on? Are we socially accepted? That's a big one. In today's society, in order to really function and thrive, but also survive, it's mainly social survival. That's mainly what it is about. And in a certain sense, we're in a defensive state. And of course, there's a spectrum in this, but we are either below the line or above. And I'm going to explain above now. So above the line is a state of openness and curiosity. Our primary focus here is of learning, which means when we're open and curious, we are able to admit when we are wrong, or we are able to see, there might be a different way of looking at this. And if you look at our 15 commitments, this is what you're going to be seeing. So you're going to see an above the line functioning or operating or being, and then a below the line functioning, operating or being. And again, the goal is not to be above the line, because that is our brains are probably your brain is probably looking at this right now thinking, I need to be above the line. No, not necessarily. What we really want is for you to have awareness. Are you below the line or above the line? And if you check in with yourself during the day, during the week, during the month, often enough, and you check in with yourself around this, you can actually start to see how much of my time am I spending below the line and above the line. And then, of course, the aim long term would be to spend most of our time or more of our time above the line rather than below the line. So our primary focus is learning in above the line. So we're really curious, we're really open, we're willing to be wrong, we're willing to be challenged on our perspectives, and we're willing to do something that's unfamiliar, unknown. Yeah. And in that way, we're also focused on context, which you can see here in the corner. So we can, and here, so we can either in life, we can focus on the content, or we can focus more contextually. And contextual viewing has to do not so much with what are we talking about, but how are we talking about this? Or how are we going about this? So conscious leaders and people that are consciously leading themselves in life, whether that's in business or otherwise, are asking the question, how am I looking at this? How am I viewing this? What is the way in which I'm viewing this? Yeah. So it's not about what am I saying or doing, it's how am I going about it in the saying or doing of that thing. And that's really the key difference between conscious self-leadership, or what we might call or refer to as unconscious self-leadership. Unconscious self-leadership simply means we are below the line, we are closed and defensive simply because we are operating out of habituated ways of thinking and being and behavioral patterns. Now, the main intention from this video here is so that you can transfer this into the 15 commitments and sense check for yourself as we walk through the 15 commitments. Am I below the line or above the line? And how much time of the day, week, month do I spend below the line or above the line? And then again, really important to repeat, it's not about being as much as possible above the line. It is more important that you are honest with yourself and aware to what is actually happening, because that's actually a sign of conscious leadership, than that you are above the line. They've actually done research with a bunch of leaders in the United States with this framework. And most of the leaders would say that they're above the line whilst they're actually below the line. Now, what do you think is more dangerous? People that are aware that they are below the line, or people that think they're above the line, but they're actually not? In terms of if we talk about innovation, creativity, etc., etc. Above the line is also the space of happiness, creativity, productivity, and real genuine connection, whether that's again in the workplace or in other areas of life, because we're open and we're curious. If I'm defensive and I'm busy being right, I'm going to cut myself off from connection. I can't be creative anymore because I can't think innovatively. I can't see outside of the box. I can't be productive really because I'm sort of in this fight flight mode, which is survival. So fight flight, which we'll go into more in the nervous system section, as well as to how fight flight works and how you can shift that. So I'm no longer actually connecting with my present moment. I'm no longer here with what's here in front of me, and I'm no longer able to lead consciously. What shifts me to be able to do that is being aware that this is happening. So awareness is really the very first step.